on Thursday, December 4th, 2025, we have a full moon at 5:13 p.m. Central Standard Time. Now, by the time you see this, the full moon in Gemini, which is at 13 degrees and 3 minutes of Gemini, has already passed. But we still need to talk about this very dynamic full moon. This full moon shows us what we've learned and what yet remains for us to learn. And this full moon is taking us back to May 27th of 2025, when we had the new moon. I think it was around 6 degrees of Gemini. And that new moon, I think I did a video on YouTube back then called The Grand Alignment. And it's because we had the sun, moon, Mercury, all in Gemini. And we had Saturn and Neptune were in Aries at that time, and Pluto in Aquarius. So everything was lining up. And that alignment back then was kind of foreshadowing 2026. We were getting the opportunity to initiate the path that would really show up in 2026. Learning was the path to success with that new moon in Gemini. So this full moon at 13 degrees of Gemini is asking us, what did or have we learned since May 27th of 2026? What have we learned as we were initiating Gemini season? What have we learned that we can now look at and have a perspective showing up here in Sagittarius season? And then based on that perspective and what we have learned, what do we see for our next steps to take something to the next level? What remains for us to learn? This sun in Sagittarius is about adaptation. And this full moon is creating a grand mutable cross with the nodal axis. We have the sun and moon, 13 degrees of Sagittarius and Gemini respectively, and we have the north node Pisces 13 degrees, south node Virgo 13 degrees. So we've got a grand mutable cross right now with this full moon. So the energy permeating our reality is one of forced learning, because when we have a grand cross, it's forcing. We're being prodded. We have to take action relative to the modality. And this is mutable. So it's forced learning, forced adaptation, forced change. But at the same time, we're having to figure out that healthy balance between these mutable attributes that I just named and not falling victim to analysis paralysis. So when you have a grand cross, it's forcing you to work with the energies in that triplicity. But it's also forcing you to open the door to the next triplicity that follows. So we're having to figure out how to be mutable, to change, to adapt, to learn, because it is a grand mutable cross. We're having to work with those energies. But at the same time, we're being challenged to not be held hostage by changing and learning and adapting to where you ain't doing nothing. So now we're also having to figure out, how do we take that and then initiate a new cycle? Because what follows is a cardinal or angular sign, Capricorn. How do we then take what we've learned, the adaptations, the changes, and then it translate into action? That's the other part of this grand mutable cross. Another thing to consider about this full moon is that the moon and Mars are out of bounds. Mars is at 22 degrees of Sagittarius. And of course, we know the moon's at 13. So they're out of bounds. And when planets are out of bounds, they are erratic. I wrote something down in my notes about Mars, but I can't seem to place it. But my memory will trigger as I keep going. So Mars and the moon are out of bounds. So this is like the type of full moon where it's a very argumentative type of energy in the air. It's very warlike, based around your opinion. It is very competitive. There's a very competitive energy in the air, especially with this Mars and Sagittarius. It's a lot of machismo. There's a lot of machismo around this full moon. And there's this erratic, volcanic nature to it because we have Mars and the moon out of bounds. And they're picking up that Uranian energy. And then we'll come back to that, because when planets are out of bounds, they take on the energy of Uranus, and Uranus itself is in opposition to Mercury right now. So that adds to it. So Mercury is the ruler of the full moon. So not only is the moon out of bounds, but Mercury, the ruler of the full moon, is in a position where it is very unnecessarily combative. It's in opposition to Uranus right now. It's also in a position of aha. It's in a position of enlightenment, because the great enlightenment is not hidden from Mercury. It is directly in its face, because Mercury is opposing Uranus, and Mercury is direct and Uranus is retrograde. So this is an applying opposition. So this tension between the two is going to increase, and that, oppositions are not necessarily bad, because opposition is what creates relationship. So the combativeness of Mercury and Uranus, and this propensity to just blurt out things and to just say whatever pops up in the head, and coming from the gut in Scorpio, and then blurting right out, because Uranus is removing all of the blocks, all of the filters. So that's the potential negative. The positive is that it brings the idea, the pioneering thought, the ingenuity, the inventiveness. It brings it right up in your face, like, it's almost like necessity is the mother of invention type of thing, with Uranus opposite Mercury. So that's a way to really utilize this. But this Mercury is also in a inconjunct. I'm sorry. It's in an inconjunct, direct inconjunct to Chiron right now. So this is where something's nagging us that we can't quite see, and there's some type of truth we're looking for in our identity. because Chiron is in Aries. There's something we're looking for in ourselves, because Chiron is more than just a wound. Chiron is a deep longing for truth, a truth that lasts, a truth that is something that we can have philosophical root in. And in Aries, it's about us. What's the philosophy of me? Who am I really? And both of those in conjunct or quincunx to each other, they're both answering to an out of bounds Mars, because Mars is the traditional ruler of Scorpio and the ruler of Aries. And these two planets, these two bodies, Mercury and Chiron, not seeing eye to eye. There's this nagging need to get to the bottom of things that's plaguing the mind right now. And they're answering to a Mars that's out of bounds. So this is where we got to really kind of step back, catch our breath, and be mindful of triggers. Because that Mars finds itself in conjunct with Jupiter right now. So that it's like the energy is highly charged with emotion. Jupiter expands things. So in Cancer, it expands our sensitivity, and then that can really push this Mars that's out of bounds, and it is stuck in a parental role to Mercury and Chiron, and it doesn't want to be. It's not even responsible for itself where it's at right now. So we got all this energy flowing through us. Just be careful. Mercury, if we, I'm not going to talk about this because this aspect is kind of fading. No, it's not. I want to talk about it. Mercury is the string of a kite right now, because Mercury is applying. So this energy is going to perfect. So Mercury is the string of a kite right now. There's a kite between Jupiter, Uranus, Saturn. We can include Neptune, with Mercury right now as the string of the kite. And this is a depth knowing is driving the movement, because the string is directing. The air gets up into the kite, but we need the string to connect the kite at its height to the controller on the ground. So there's a depth knowing that's driving the movement, a sudden bellowing and utterance, a lightning strike, the throat chakra causing volcanic eruption. That's how I'm looking at this. And that's again because of Mercury's opposition to Uranus. We have a water trine right now, intensifying all of this emotional flow. There's Jupiter retrograde 24 of Cancer, Mercury direct 22 of Scorpio, Saturn 25, Neptune retrograde 29 of Pisces. This is high emotional access. This is intuitive force, but be careful not to drown. Be careful not to drown in all this water. You got all this emotional energy flowing. The blood is charged, the lymph is charged. Just be careful about taking on, especially if you're empathic, be careful about taking on other people's energy, being infected by their negativity. Be careful about being able to balance your own emotions. I have felt it personally. Jupiter is sitting on my moon. So like my moods, being able to manage them and control them is something I have to be mindful of. So I would suggest you too, because we're all more watery right now. Even if you're not even watery by nature in your chart, you're feeling this water. Mars is in a square to, in an applying square to Saturn right now. So this is a time, pay attention to government restrictions that put a hindrance on identity and one's ability to express self as, we see fit. There's a sense of rebellion in the air. There's a resistance to discipline. There's a potential recklessness. And I think this has given us an early glimpse of when Saturn fully arrives in Aries, because we're having the two energies, because Mars rules Aries, squaring Saturn. So when you have Saturn, which will be debilitated in Aries, it's similar to like Mars squaring Saturn. So we have these themes around rebellion and recklessness and wanting to fight against anything that seems authoritative. And there may be a resistance to maturity, a resistance, a lack of patience, especially. So these are things also to really pay attention this full moon, because I think it's giving us a glimpse in a lot of ways of the energy of 2026. Neptune is also squaring Mars. This is, I'm calling this militarization of the astral realm. This could be misguided passion. Let me deal with that militarization of the astral realm, because sometimes people don't catch what I'm saying is that malefic energies that we allow into our energetic field because of us becoming porous by the vibratory rate that we're functioning at. If our vibration is too low, if we allow ourselves to sink too much or be around low vibrational energies, it makes us more porous and more open to attack from astral energies that just walk in, walk out. Okay? So that's what I mean by that. Misguided passion is self-explanatory. Identity crisis. Emotions like boiling water, right? Because you got this combustive energy of Mars squaring Neptune, god of the sea. This chart creates, we won't deal with that. I had some stuff about how this affects Trump's chart. I'm not even worried about that. That's enough to wrap up this full moon. We are in December. 2025 is about to be done, and we're getting ready to move into 2026. And everything changes in 2026. All of the big giants will be in either fire or air. And everything is about what has been hidden comes out. Whatever you've been working on comes out. Whatever you have refused to work on comes out. Everything comes to the surface in 2026. Get ready for the ride. 720astrology.com. Know the stars and know yourself. Peace.